Monday, the 22nd of July. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're live to you from Lagos, the headquarters of Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. I am Fidson. I hope we all had a very great weekend. So this busy business week in Abuja from 2 days, Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee meeting today and tomorrow, to the Tony Elumelu Foundation's 2-day Entrepreneurship Forum on Friday and Saturday, may be trumped by Nigeria's search for security. The vice president at the weekend, of course, begins crisscrossing the country, meetings with traditional rulers starting in the country's southwest, looking for their cooperation and assistance, among other things, in tackling the spread of violent crime enterprise in the country. The leadership of the National Assembly are also being to a number of states, looking for everyone's support to tackle the spate of insecurity, what you call criminal enterprise in the country. Meantime, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting may leave all key rates parameters changed tomorrow, July the 23rd, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The Central Bank Governor will be live here on Channels Television as part of our live coverage of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, a communique of the financial regulator. That's despite the June's inflation decline to 11.22%. Sources within the marketplace says the central bank is not yet convinced that the July sharp fall in inflation is enough to cut interest rates. Meantime, some analysts have suggested and forecast that the MPR, which is our headline policy rate, may be cut by between 25 and 100 basis points when the decisions of the MPC are read out tomorrow afternoon, slightly past lunchtime. Join us for that extensive coverage and studio analysis. That is part of the market focus. The financial regulator will also explain a bit further on his recent monetary policy tools, looking to direct bank credit to the retail, mortgage, and small and medium enterprises. All of that will be further explained tomorrow by the head of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele. Meantime, the shareholders and directors of Lafarge Africa are holding a special meeting today, ordered by a federal high court, for a scheme to merge the operations, the financials, and assets and shares of Lafarge Ready-Mix Nigeria Limited with those of the parent company without winding up the subsidiary. This was part of the court-ordered arrangement, which will now bring the entire company together as Lafarge Africa looks to secure a better future for the listed cement-making company. And on Wednesday, you'll be looking at the Debt Management Office July auction. That will be a reopening of 3 tenored Naira papers worth a total of 145 billion. That's the 145 billion Naira. The debt office will be opening 150 billion, another 55 billion, another 40 billion Naira in 3 tenors, which analysts say will likely track the current yield curve at the secondary market. And one news coming through from the marketplace, Deep Capital Management PLC, which is a financial services firm listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, has informed the market about the change in this board of directors, the management, the company secretary, and the office address. According to a 5-page statement sent to the stock exchange, Mr. Joe Idudu and Mr. Emmanuel Ugbo have now rejoined Deep Capital as chairman and non-executive director of the company after 5 years suspension, which was placed on them and 9 other directors of Deep Capital by the Securities and Exchange Commission, expired March this year. According to the company, other directors, Kenneth Olise, Edmond Ani, and Joel Omole, are now appointed as part of the turnaround team for Deep Capital, based on the business reorganization and operational plan prepared by a consulting company. Williams Odudu, according to Deep Capital, resigned from the board based on the new structure of Deep Capital, which now has 7 board members, 2 persons from the existing board, 2 from the old board suspended by the Securities and Exchange Commission 5 years ago, and 3 from the turnaround team. That gives you a team for Deep Capital. This is one company whose shares has not been traded since October the 15th 2018, and the share price sitting at 44 kobo per unit for nearly a year. That's some of the stories making the headlines right now from the business and the marketplace. But Temple Ashaju will share some of this in more details with us as we cross over to him in our studios at the Nigerian Stock Exchange in downtown Lagos. Temple, hope you had a very great weekend. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Fidson.
Yes, good to have you here. So let's do a very quick recap. We managed to secure 0.2% on the equity side and the stock market on Friday when we finished off. This looks like a bit of the first Gen 2 landing in a week for the market. They are seeing very serious decline in recent weeks, in particular since the new year started.
Correct, Fidson. We were able to secure some gains on Friday. That's quite positive, actually, for some investors, but very, very few investors, because what we've been seeing in recent time, the whole losses, I'm not sure anyone was actually able really to benefit from the gain that we saw on Friday, perhaps a few investors. But basically, a downward trend, dominated what we saw. If you do a week-on-week valuation of the market, we saw some 2.27% decline in total for last week. Generally, we lost over 315 billion naira in the market last week. If you look at the year-to-date losses, that also expanded to some 11.2%. Tells you that things are not too good for a lot of equity investors here in the market, the secondary side of the market as well. So our volume of transaction last week was 1.08 billion, valued at 13.390 billion naira. And of course, if you check what was lost, 315 billion naira reduces all of those gains that we saw, given the listing of Airtel, on the equity side of the equity capitalization of the market. In total, we had 15,777 deals last week. Performance across sectors was basically weak, generally down. For the banking side was 4.30%. That's UBA contributing massively to that, some 6.8%. Consumer goods was down. International breweries, which was hanging at 30 naira for a long time, we see it now trading at 15 naira or more. Consumer goods, industrial goods was also down. Insurance was down. Oil and gas, Seplat lost some 9.4%, and of course Total 7.2%. All of these weakened the market last week. For the unlisted securities market, we got a decline as well, week on week, of some 0.43% decline in the market. Market capitalization settled at 522 billion naira. We saw volume at just 1.22 million and valued at 130.38 million naira. If you check the companies that contributed massively week on week to all of these numbers, we got CSCS, we did 678 units of the shares, NDP, and of course WAMCO, which even declared some 6 naira 36 kobo in dividends to investors, and that saw a little bit of activities for the greater part of last week. For the fixed income side of the market, things continue to look very, very bullish on that side of things, except from Friday, where we saw a little bit of less activity around the bond market. But generally, liquidity inflows around the 2021 and 2034 security really helped the bond markets last week. We saw investors reinvesting their coupon payments, and that's contributed to the average bond yields that declined by some 25 basis points for the greater part of last week to 13.4% week on week. For the OMO transactions that we saw on the treasury bill side of the market, OMO auction we saw on the treasury bill side of the market last week also contributed to some kind of average yields decline that we saw at 62 basis points week on week, dipping to some 10.5% last week for treasury bills. Of course, there was a bit of elevated liquidity in the system as well, which also helped that side of the market. Short to medium side of the curve was where we saw a whole lot of activities, Fidson.
So quite a lot to talk about this week. This is the MPC meeting, quite a bit of stories, but let's leave that for Uchenna Minis of the Eagle Global Markets to talk about later. But let's talk about some of the stories in the news. I'm sure you've tracked some of this for us. Let's start with Deep Capital reporting that 2 of its directors who were suspended, actually about 9 of them thereabout. They were suspended 5 years ago by the SEC. 2 of them are back on the board of the company. Deep Capital, this is a company that hasn't been traded. The share has been in the doldrums since October last year. Bring us up to speed on what you think this will mean for the company, which is a financial services company like an investment bank, used to be a book runner, lead arranger, an investment bank, an issuing house, and what have you. Now they say some of the directors are back on the board because they want to do a turnaround.
So I always say again, Bosun, that you've been in this market way before me, and I know you know Emmanuel Ugbo, who used to be the chief executive of Deep Capital. He's back again as a board member on this particular company. First, I believe that this will be some kind of good music to the ears and, of course, the heart of Mr. Emmanuel Ugbo, because this company has actually been, rendered basically idle for this past 5 years. And of course, for a whole lot of the investors and individual creditors that have, stake in Deep Capital, this is good music to them. The fact that they are now coming on board, there's been a whole lot of restructuring, now that will also bring this company back, on board. The fact that they're converting some 1.6 billion naira that belongs to those creditors, individual and collective investors in this company, to some kind of equity in this company, ordinary shares of 50 kobo each in this particular company, Deep Capital. It's something that is really, really good for Deep Capital as a company, and of course for the market as a whole. For a lot of investors who had actually lost money in Deep Capital over the years since 2013, that they haven't really been doing well, I mean, this is something that will help them to now continue to watch the numbers and check how the performance will be, here on the ticker tape of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Deep Capital as an investment bank over the years has also contributed to this market. I know they got listed in 2007, and given the suspension that they experienced some few years ago, the investments of a lot of investors have actually been tied, locked down, in this company. So the fact that they are coming on board now is something that will really, really help a lot of investors, this secondary retail investors, and in fact institutional investors, to see how they can get their money back. So it is a good news. I know that again that they're going to be experiencing some kind of a name change. According to the communique passed released to the stock exchange here, we understand that they will change the name from Deep Capital Management Securities Limited, or PLC rather, to just Deep PLC. And this will also allow the creditors and a lot of those investors that they have, to stay on board from October 2019 all the way through to 2024, I think September 2024. It is something that will help them to really, really restructure the company and bring it back into profitability, Bosun.
This is one story that I'm sure everyone who in the market should pay particular attention. And this is because 2007, Deep Capital, that was the period when the stock market was on everybody's lips. There's nothing else. It was much bigger than MMM back then, because it was all the years of the bank consolidation, insurance sector recapitalization. Everybody loved the stock market back then, 2007. So Deep Capital came as an investment bank, and it packaged actually some of the offers in the marketplace. Then, of course, it stepped forward, became a listed company as an investment bank, listed on the market. Then again, it went down because of the regulatory sanction. So the point here, Temple, for me, is that the directors that were suspended for 5 years by the SEC, they served their term, technically speaking, and now they're back in the company, in the market. This shows that, look, if you are suspended from the market by the SEC, you can go for what you call a period of a purgatory, if you call it there, religious purgatory. There you have your sins cleansed up. Sure. Then you come back as a born again, quote and unquote. Then you can still make it to the marketplace, make it back to Broad Street, and still be on board of a company. But there'll be a lot of considerations here moving forward. Tempo, this is one story, I'm sure, but we have less time. Sure. Let's talk a little bit about another company. Here, Omatech. Omatech came as an indigenous ICT company with the headquarters somewhere around, I think that was Bagada, somewhere where the headquarters is. Doing very well in ICT as an indigenous company just about 10 to 15 years ago. Yes, and Oregon as well. Now the company hasn't held annual shareholders meeting for about a 5-year period. Now they say they want to do everything together because they seem they are getting their acts together. Unfortunately, they lost the managing director about, I think, last year or so. Yeah, the CEO.
So, yeah, that was about 2 years ago. There about that Mrs. Florence Seriki.
Yeah.
That was a serious blow that hit that particular company, which would have actually, by now, I think would have been on a trajectory, in the market. I recall some few years ago, 2014 or 2015, the late Mrs. Florence Seriki was here at the stock exchange to introduce some of the products that the company was coming up with, and that was some LED lights that the company had invested in terms of production and in terms of solar. They were actually going into solar production as well. By now that we're beginning to see a whole lot of news and activities around renewable in the market, by now Omatech would have also actually been able to participate and be able to settle its creditors better. But unfortunately, the debt actually of Mrs. Seriki actually affected that company. But it's good to know right now that the earnings of this company since 2015 till date will be made available to the stock exchange going forward. I think this week, before this week runs out, we understand that those numbers will be made available for investors to actually digest. They are going to also hold the annual general meetings that have been left hanging for this financial years in the next few days. There's an AGM or board meeting that will hold on the 22nd of August, which is really, really good. So the news of Omatech and the news of Deep Capital coming on board in the market tells us that there's a bit of hope for a lot of these securities in the market. I think the Nigerian Stock Exchange management has also been doing a whole lot to bring these companies back on track, and that's probably why we are seeing this news, hitting the portals of the exchange, Bosun.
Yeah, this is good. Let's check in with the healthcare. I think it was a year or two ago when B&B Baker announced this deal with the World Health Organization, I think, or so, and about producing more pharmaceuticals locally to resolve some of our health issues in the basic primary healthcare sector. Now, Fidson says it's also in bed with Ohara, which is a Japanese pharmaceutical company looking for a strategic relationship that will help boost the fortunes of the company.
Yeah.
This is good news for some of our listed companies in the healthcare sector.
Correct, Bosun. So Fidson actually just concluded a rights issue, and we understand that the integration or partnership, this strategic partnership they're striking with Ohara Pharmaceutical is in relation to the rights issue that has just been concluded, which also brings the stake of Ohara Pharmaceutical in Fidson to some 21.57%. And we understand that that will help to help the company to serve the Nigerian market more in terms of pharmaceutical services and, of course, products introduction in the market. A whole lot of investors will be, looking forward to how that will impact on the market. I should also add that Fidson is not the only company that got that level of integration. There's another company, Royal Exchange, that also has a partnership with another company, with a German firm actually, and that is coming on board into Royal Exchange on behalf of the German government actually. They're investing some good stake, about 30% or thereabouts in that. So these are really, really good news. So it helps a lot of these companies to actually get some good ground, stand well in the market and get some investors to really be able to key into it. Again, you know that the recapitalization, or a whole lot of recapitalization news flying in the air will be affecting some of these companies if you check critically. So this level of PEs that we're seeing, interest coming into these companies is good news really, really for a lot of investors. Bosun.
Temple, we have 60 seconds. Let's touch finally with Cadbury. 30 seconds. This is company coming back into green. I love the numbers. Yeah. Earnings per share is back to 36 kobo positive from a negative.
I love it too.
Yes. It looks like Cadbury is getting sweet again. Bombita that is. I haven't tasted it in a long time. This is not an advertorial, I must confess. I like disclosure. That's in my market. Yes.
What? Watch your health, Bosun, before you consume some Bombita. I'm not sure it's still good for you at this point. But it's good to know that Cadbury is doing well. If you've been driving around Lagos very well in recent times, you'll be seeing the advert.
Yes. And revenue is back. They make a profit after tax of a whopping...
Yeah, revenues. They're back in profitability.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Maybe they're going to change or repaint the signboard and whatever.
Exactly.
Headquarters in
Exactly.
Yes, thank you so much, folks. Temple, I don't know what you're drinking, but I had coffee this morning, and I had some tea, but I haven't had Bonvita in quite some time. Another one, anything around those beverage. No hard feelings, Cadbury guys. No hard feelings. Yes. So, Temple, thank you so much. Let's talk later on the program.
Get Bonvita for your boy.
Let's take this break, everyone. Thank you.